welcome everyone to the Cup of Coffee podcast with me, your host, Tom Dillon. This has been recorded live at our weekly online meeting and broadcast around the world. Today's topic is how to build an Airbnb business with zero risk and unlimited potential in 2024 with Alex Mannock. And before we start, I'd like to say by way of a disclaimer that today is a wonderful discussion, but that nothing said here constitutes financial advice, and you should always take professional advice before you invest your hard-earned cash. There may be the odd unplanned swear word along the way. The format for today is that Alex will speak to us for a while, and then we'll take some questions from the floor. So get those ready. Alex and business partner Pooh have built a portfolio of over 16 serviced accommodation units and 10 buy-to-lets collectively over the last 5 years. This Airbnb business, hard to say, has allowed each of them to create their own tailor-made lifestyle by design. That sounds fancy, doesn't it? I like the sound of that. Alex likes to spend most of his time in sunny Spain, enjoying his love for road cycling, while Pooh chose to escape the corporate life as an electrical engineer in order to spend his time at home with his young family. Good morning, Alex.
Hey, Tom. Thanks so much for having me on the podcast. Sorry about that.
You're all good.
Can you hear me now? Yep, perfect.
Loud and clear. Good to the nation. We'll get it in the edit. What have you been up to recently? What excitements have you got, and what do you want to share with us today?
Well, I'm back in the UK. I've been over in sunny Mallorca, tearing around on my bike, enjoying the sunshine, but I'm back in the UK at the minute. And yeah, really appreciate the welcome onto the podcast. And today I'm going to be giving a bit of a presentation around what we do. Me and my business partner, Pooh. Now, unfortunately, he hasn't been able to make it. He's got his young family at home. So you're going to have to make do with me for today. But what I'm going to be talking about is a new opportunity in the serviced accommodation space. So this is what we do. We're in the service accommodation, Airbnb, whatever you want to call it, property space, and going to be talking about a new opportunity that we're starting to pivot into and that we're working with our mentees on as well. And it's moving more into the consultancy space. So basically, we're going to be covering how anybody can make, between £3,000 to £5,000 per month relatively quickly as an Airbnb consultant. So what's the opportunity here? Well, the opportunity is that the supply and demand market is starting to become very skewed because there's so many people getting into the industry now, and it's actually getting quite saturated. So there's a lot of people now struggling to fill their properties. A lot of people aren't talking about this. A lot of the courses and the schools and the trainers aren't talking about the fact that the market's getting very, very saturated. So this is where we're going to step in and start to help. So this is one of our mentees. This is Stephen Chung. Stephen and his brother, Alan, two very, very smart guys that joined our program quite early on. They came to us with almost no experience in property, definitely no experience in the serviced accommodation space. They came in very committed, ready to put in the hard work, started following our program, implementing the actions that we were teaching them. And these are some of the results, some of the bookings that you can see that have been coming in through Airbnb and booking.com. Stephen's just a chef. Alan's an accountant. So together they complement each other quite well. And these guys are doing really, really well now in the serviced accommodation space.
For anyone on the podcast, Alex, who's listening, what were those numbers? Just give us a flavour. Yeah,
so as you can see here, they're bringing in multiple hundreds of pounds each month. Here we've got March through February through March. So what have we got there? Best part of $4,000 or something for the month.
Numbers,
so really, really good numbers. This is Afi. Afi is another one of our mentees that joined early on. Afi came to us actually with a couple of properties already, but she was having some issues around occupancy levels and other bits and pieces. And now she's doing really, really well, but she's also doing really well with direct bookings. So Afi's, you can see there, just an example of another booking there over the 14 nights. So £2,100, not too bad. Daniel is another one of our mentees. Daniel was a great guy. He came to us with 5 of his own units, but again, struggling with occupancy levels. There was loads of things wrong within Daniel's business that we helped him to fix. Some of it quite basic, some other things a little bit more advanced. Daniel's now at 100% occupancy, and he's also doing really, really well. He's making on average around $5,000 a month in this new consultancy model. But more importantly, with Daniel, he was in the business, but he wasn't telling anybody what he was doing. So he was basically invisible on social media, and that's what we've been pushing him to do now. So now he's all over socials, and his business is doing really, really well. So in this presentation, we're going to talk about what it is, why it's different, how it works, and how anyone really can make money in this space in the next 90 days by recognizing some of the issues in the space and across the industry, and just trying to kind of pivot and go more down the road that we're doing. So the other good thing about this business, guys, is that you can do it without having to give up your day job. You can start up alongside your full-time job. You don't need lots of startup capital. So you don't need, the mortgages and the big deposits. We're also not talking about rent to rent here. This is why we're different. What we do is different. So you're not going to be taking on all the liability of rent to rent contracts, which is what everybody's doing nowadays. And you really don't need any property experience. You can just follow the process that we've done, that we've learned, that we've been doing for the last 5 years, implement that into the system, a bit like plug and play, and you can actually do really, really well. So cost of living crisis, I'm pretty sure we're all familiar with that. Cost of groceries is up, cost of energy is up, rents are up, mortgages are up. And one of the other things that's down actually at the moment is UK travel. So staycations, all of the luxury things kind of start to drop off, right, when people are struggling. So this is also contributing to the issue that we're now facing in the Airbnb industry with people struggling to get bookings. So supply and demand mayhem. So kind of what I touched on earlier, there is a big issue right now with the supply and demand. It's completely out of whack. There is way more supply than there is demand. The combination of cost of living and the boom in Airbnb properties. This is from just a screenshot from one of the portals for Liverpool in May 24, so recent. And the purple dots are Airbnbs, which is quite hard to believe. But that is the center of Liverpool, and it's basically purple. So this is the competition. So, it's no wonder that people are, struggling to fill their properties now. Same thing.
Sorry to interrupt. Just go back. There you go. Yeah, just again for those listening, there's lots of purple dots on the map showing there's lots. I think of available properties, and it's what surprises me is if I'm reading the numbers right on the graphic here, it seems to be showing that it's 78% occupied, which means that that's 22% of the market, which is lots of purple dots again. So that means there's bloody millions of them, isn't there? If I'm reading that correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. There's thousands upon thousands of properties, and believe it or not, this is something that a lot of people aren't really considering when they're doing their analysis on whether to, on taking on new properties. They get offered a property, they grab it, and then once they've locked it in and signed the contract, then they'll look at the map and see shit. There's many other people doing the same thing.
Sure.
So that's Liverpool. Moving into Reading, similar thing, and you're going to find this kind of going across the UK, especially if you go down into the some of the pinch points, Cornwall, Devon, some of these scenic, typical touristy UK spots. Very, very busy and very, very purple. So again, it just kind of highlights the supply and demand issues here in the UK with Airbnb or with serviced accommodation. So the harsh reality here is, and again, not a lot of the training schools or the trainers are really talking about this, and why would they? Because they're selling courses in this stuff. But what's happening is that a lot of people are going off doing their training, walking out, with big dreams, big plans, big aspirations, and jumping straight in and finding out that it's not quite what was sold to them. So these are just some screenshots that basically we've taken from people that are scattered all across the property portals, asking a question. You can see here why, my Airbnb is empty this month, only 5 days last month. What's going on? Is anyone using booking.com having any success? So people really finding that a couple of years ago, they were doing really, really well. But as thousands of more people are entering the space, the basics and what we're going to get into is that the issue here is that when people are going off and they're doing their training, they're learning what used to work. A couple of years ago, you could go out and just find a place, whack it on Airbnb, booking.com, and away you go, and you would get bookings. But that's not working anymore because it's just too saturated. And now people are like, shit, I don't know what to do because the OTAs or online travel agencies aren't working for me anymore. And this is where people are coming unstuck. So it's a knowledge thing, really. It's a marketing knowledge thing. Just another example here. We're seeing lots and lots of people, again, on the different groups and in the different online communities, selling furniture, closing units. We're just seeing it across the board. And good old social media, mostly what people are seeing who aren't in the space or who are looking at getting into the space, all they're really seeing, because the way our minds work and our brains work, when we want something, we focus on what we want to see. So they're seeing the few people that are talking about the big bookings and the 6-figure bookings and the year-long bookings and all the rest of it. As we know with social media, a lot of what we're seeing isn't necessarily the truth. And again, more examples, shutting down a unit in Birmingham. Oh,
What really strikes me again to help those people on the listening is the photo, the screen grabs you've just shown there from maybe the furniture, examples of furniture being sold. Is those are beautiful looking places, aren't they? It's not like shabby, like,
yeah,
oh, these aren't quite up to standard stuff. This is stuff where you go, oh yeah, that's a beautiful unit. They've obviously followed all the books and just be a lovely place to stay. And
yeah,
yet, well, it's quite. I find it quite sad to see because someone's obviously put a lot of effort and money into making these places look lovely, and then it's like, units shutting down, grabbing a fire sale, but selling their furniture off for probably quite a big loss. Is it? That's the surprise for me. Take off for me is how nice those units are.
yeah, absolutely. And this is all a consequence of the rent to rent boom. And we're gonna talk about exactly what that is and what the problems are with it in a second here. So yeah, but each of these units, could have cost 10, 12, sometimes £15,000 to get up and live and running. And you're right, Tom. When it comes to realizing it's not working, having to sell everything off, you basically you're going to get a quarter of what you invested. So it is a problem. So yeah, just a real quick little bit about me. So that's me there, Alex on the left, my business partner Pooh. He's the smart one, like I said, but he couldn't be here today. But very, very smart guy. And we met back in 2017 on a property course. We were kind of looking at HMOs back then. But I was in Spain, Pooh was in Woking in Surrey, quite an expensive part of the UK, and we really struggled to get anything to stack. And I wasn't really focused. I was enjoying my time working on super yachts in Spain and in the Bahamas and all the rest of it. So we kind of messed around and just spoke about it for a little bit. And then Pooh actually got into the service accommodation space. He's a spreadsheet guy, analysis city, loves all that stuff. And service accommodation was kind of where he found his feet. So he got started, and then I joined him a couple of years later in the business as more of a kind of face of the business, brand building, stuff like that. And he's the smart one behind the scenes building the business. So fast forward 2023, 24, kind of this is where we're at, both kind of living life on our own terms, which is kind of the goal, right? That everybody's trying to achieve, however you get there. We've found freedom through this strategy. Obviously, we are a little bit further down the road. We've learned it inside out. We've managed to systemize and automate things, bring in some team members and stuff to take some of the heavy lifting. But we've both individually kind of, developed our own lifestyle by design, which is, me along the top. I love to travel. like I said, spend time in Spain. Love to do the fitness events, ride my bike, chase the sun. So that's me along the top, and then Pooh, the line along the bottom there is that's his dream. So he's a stay-at-home dad. He's got a young family. He now raises his kids, and everything's kind of run from a laptop. So it's pretty awesome that we've managed to get there. This is an example of some of the numbers that is possible, and some of the numbers that we've been able to achieve here. This is through having the knowledge around marketing and knowing how, in a very busy marketplace, that you need to know now in order to generate bookings. But once you understand it, once you've got the systems, and once you're putting in the work outside of just sitting on the OTAs and hoping for the best, then you can start to drive some quite large bookings. So you can see some reasonably big numbers there, which is great. And this is coming through, yes, some of the OTAs, but also direct, Silver Door, some other relocation companies, and also just having a really good visibility on lots and lots of different platforms to help drive more direct bookings.
This is there's a few screen grabs there showing transactions of thousands of pounds for for some properties, I imagine, just for those listening.
Yeah. So comparing these kind of numbers to the average kind of median salary in the UK, it's quite appealing to the amount of monthly revenue that you can make in this business, when being the important word, when you know kind of how to generate it. Because the important thing, Tom, to realize is that, yes, the space is busy, but there is so many hundreds of thousands of people moving up and down the UK every single day, not necessarily leisure, but for work, corporates, contractors. All of these guys are moving around constantly, and they need places to stay, but you've got to know how to reach out to them and how to make them know that you exist. So this slide, the monster, this is basically just to highlight what most people are building here when they go out and try and start a service accommodation business. So people, like I said, they come out the training courses, financial freedom in 6 months, going to set the world on fire, blah blah blah. But what they actually end up doing is taking on properties, struggling to get them booked, laying in bed at night, having sleepless nights, lots of money going out, not a lot coming in the rent to rent model. And they basically end up creating a monster for themselves, where they're now out of their jobs, but they're doing 10 times the work for half the money. And they're sitting there thinking, well, this isn't what it was meant to be. But this is what we're hearing a lot of when we're talking to people who are in a bad space. So the Airbnb consultant, this is what we're doing now. This is what we've kind of branded ourselves as people who really know what we believe to be the right way in order to make a success in this business in 2024 and moving forward, as the space only grows and gets busier, and helping other people to turn around people's underperforming and struggling businesses, and helping them to implement the changes that are needed to build a successful business in this space. So again, just some numbers here. So what is possible in this space, on top of just what everybody talks about, which is just going out, renting a property, and putting it on Airbnb and taking bookings for your own properties, is that once you've got these systems in place and once you've got your marketing on point, you can now start to monetize additional revenue streams around the immediate center of just putting people in a property. So this is just an additional 7K in 2 weeks that we made in additional bookings that we're then selling off. So when you're bringing in so many leads and you've got so many people calling you and saying, hey, do you have properties available in Woking or in Essex or in Birmingham or in Manchester? We always say yes. So whether we've got properties available of our own or not, we always say yes, because we've got such a big network of partners that we work with, and we know that we can definitely facilitate that booking. So we'll say yes. we've got a good relationship with the client. We don't want to let them down by saying no. So we'll just go out and we'll find that host. We know the host is going to do a good job, and we'll basically give them the booking, and we'll basically become the travel agent, and we'll take that 15% plus VAT commission fee. So you can make lots of additional revenue on top of just basically taking bookings through selling on leads, which is, again, all comes back to marketing. So some of the old ways that people are doing it, and obviously still doing it today, obviously the buying properties to do service accommodation in, buying your own properties. Obviously, there's lots and lots of barriers around here for the majority of people. So 25% deposit, wherever you're going to go in the UK, that's going to be a pretty hefty amount. You need a great credit score. It takes forever because the conveyancing process in the UK, we all know, is very archaic. And the rates being the biggest issue. Mortgage rates are up, and we thought they were just going to come down a little bit, but still they're high. And even for commercial mortgages and service accommodation specific lenders, 8% plus. So not the best way to utilize your war chest, really. Again, the old way, rent to serviced accommodation. This is what everybody's doing and what everybody's teaching. This is the rent to rent model. And there's lots and lots of liabilities and lots of risk that goes along with this. But the thing is, it's an easy sell. So this is what's flooding the market. This appeals to people that don't have a lot of money in their pocket. They're desperate to get out their job. Their back's up against the wall. They've got maybe £5,000 or £10,000. And they're looking to get started in property, can't afford to buy anything. So they go on the training courses, and rent to rent is sold as this really easy, get rich quick business model, which, for anybody who doesn't know, is basically where you're going to go out and you're going to rent a property as you would as a residential tenant. My dog, give me 1 second, Tom. I'm really sorry.
No problem. We'll fill the time with Alex. I don't know. Just does something with his dog. A reminder to put questions in the chat, and once Alex is finished, we'll get to as many as we can.
Really sorry about that. He wasn't going to stop barking. He's in the other room.
No problem.
Yeah. So the rent to rent model, you're going to go out, rent a property as you would on a residential tenancy. You're going to cover all of the maintenance. You're going to take on all the bills, all of the utilities, and then you're going to take that property and you're going to use it for serviced accommodation. So it sounds really good, but obviously the problem with it is, if you're not bringing in the bookings, the rent, the bills, all of that is still going out. So there's a lot of people that are getting stung with this business model. Okay, when you throw into that mix all of the gurus out there, and we all know about this, if you go on social media, if you're in the property space in any way, you're going to be getting absolutely flooded with, these courses, rent to rent crash course, financial freedom in 3 months. Some people are saying it's 7 days. You can see there on the left. It's kind of crazy. But if you combine, all of these courses and all of these get rich quick schemes with the rent to rent model, which is what everybody's talking about, and they're actually targeting people who are in a really tough spot, then it's an easy sell. And that's why everybody is going down this road. Lots and lots of people getting into the program and then coming out and basically flooding the market, which circles back to that, that skew now of the supply and demand. Lots of people in the space, but really not without the foundational knowledge that you need. So the Airbnb consultant, why is it different from simple management? So we're basically monetizing every step of the process, right? So we're charging for onboarding of our clients, people who are already in the space and are needing help. We're charging them onboarding fees. We're charging them marketing fees to get their property out there amongst the different OTAs, listing optimization. So this is really the basics of turning somebody's somebody's listing around, which a lot of people just aren't doing the basics. We can charge for staging, so staging their property and getting it to the point where it's actually going to, start attracting bookings. And then obviously management as well at 15% monthly fees. So all of these parts of the process are chargeable. Property improvement. So you can see here some of the pictures. This is kind of the level, depending on your ideal avatar or target market, that we need to be at now in a busy space. So, we can help to get the property up to scratch and basically advise them on what needs to be done. Legislation as well. This is also helping, or not really helping, but hampering people in the space who don't have the knowledge. New registration schemes, new planning class, potential C5 coming in for pinch point areas around the UK. Fire orders. There's a lot more emphasis now since October last year of the Fire Acts. October this year, where we now need to be a lot more up to date with the fire regulations, and everything's just becoming a lot more regulated. October last year, it's becoming a lot more regulated, the service accommodation, which is how everything goes in the end, right? The HMOs market used to be very open, and now there's a lot more legislation around it. So again, more knowledge required, more work, which means more people are running into problems and not meeting standards and need help. So what I'm really big on is brand building. So, we help our clients to really get themselves out there, get visibility on social media. One of the things we tried to do or are doing is we built a successful podcast, which is a great thing to have in itself, but it's also to do with just building our brand as a whole. So, there's various different ways and techniques, but basically in a nutshell, the root of it is all about just getting yourself out there and letting everybody know what you do. Lead generation. So this is my business partner's kind of specialty. So, you've got to be everywhere. There's so many different platforms that you need to be listed on now. Outside of just Airbnb and booking.com, there's up to 100 relocation agencies and insurance companies that we're registered with, that we're checking in with every single week, making sure we're top of the pile. So it's all about putting in the hard yards, putting in the work on the phones, building relationships to drive those direct bookings. So, believe it or not, probably 90% of people in the service accommodation space aren't doing any of this stuff. And that's why they're not able to fill their properties. Automation. So again, my business partner's specialty, building a business that's systemized and automated over time. It's not going to happen overnight, but the idea is with this business is to get it to a point, within a couple of years, 18 months, where you've got teams, you've got platforms, technologies, you know how to do it. So at some point you can step out and get your time back, where most people are building these businesses, like I said, just creating a monster, where we're the opposite. We're about building a business which at some point can become sustainable and somewhat passive. Never 100%, but you should be able to run it from a laptop. And building teams. Again, Pooh's specialty, bringing in the right people to do the heavy lifting and allow you to get your time back. Otherwise, what's the point in doing any of it if it's just going to become a big ball and chain? So again, some additional income streams here. Deal sourcing. We're working with one of the biggest UK sourcing companies for service accommodation for investors and overseas investors who actually approached us that needed management, that needed good consultants to go out and manage these properties. So we're able to pass deals on to our mentees for zero sourcing fees, basically completely tailored to wherever they are. These guys can source us properties. They pass them to us. We pass them to our mentees for zero, and then they go out and they manage them and monetize every step of the process. Staging, like I said, development. Once you're up to par, you can go and start helping people who are purchasing to get these properties ready to go. All the various services and legals as well, recommending companies that we work with, and obviously adding a little bit on there for ourselves as well. Again, just some proof here of some of the numbers, big bookings, big numbers. All this stuff is coming in through, a few of our own rent to rents as well as management and direct bookings, but these are mostly just, one-off direct bookings that are coming in through various partners that we work with that trust us. It's all about relationship building. It's a people's business, as everybody in property knows, and this is pretty regular stuff. But just to caveat all of this, it's not a get rich quick scheme. We'd never say that. There is a lot of work at the front end, systems to learn, hard work to put in, getting your face out there, building visibility, brand building, and yeah, it does take hard work as anything does. So yeah, mentoring program, the Airbnb consultant, we're working with a small group of very committed individuals at the minute. We haven't actually officially started advertising yet. It's pretty new, but everybody that's come to us is just organic, really, that have come to us from other training courses, who have pretty much already got a few properties under their belt, but they're realizing that what they was told isn't working so much now, and they're needing help. So they're coming in, and we're helping to turn their businesses around. So mentors, whatever space you're in, I believe is highly important. I mean, I think we've invested well over 6 figures into our own training, as a lot of other people have as well. So massively important. So yeah, that's pretty much it. You ready to make 2024 the best year of your life so far? If you want, get your time back, make more money and live a potentially, remote lifestyle, running things from a laptop. It is possible, as long as you put in the work and learn the systems, follow the process, don't reinvent the wheel. What we do works, and yeah, we're pretty pumped to start helping other people to do the same. So, and there's just a little QR code there if you wanted to connect. We can jump on a discovery call if you want to check it out and see what it's all about in more detail. You can scan that and book a call with us, and we'll tell you all about it.
Super.
So that's
Thank
it.
you very much.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. I actually really enjoyed that. Yeah, absolutely. Now then, how do we do? Are you gonna? Well, yeah, we'll leave that with QR code up for a bit for anyone on the call, and then we'll share your contact details in a minute as well. So, well, for me, it was really interesting to hear about just the sort of well, the problems in the serviced accommodation sector, and then some of the solutions, some of the things you've been working on to help people who've maybe been struggling in there. Because I don't personally have anything in the serviced accommodation sector at the moment. We used to, but not anymore. Then it's an interesting thing for me to learn about, and I imagine that's the truth for some of the people listening and watching as well, because well, not everyone's in the serviced accommodation sector either, but lots of people are, as you rightly point out, as we saw from that graphic in Liverpool, I think it was Reading, where there's lots of properties available, and a lot of people are active in the sector. So I thought I'd start with a slightly odd question. Well, I don't think it's that odd, but it might sound odd, which is like it all seems like a lot of work. Maybe all property is a lot of work, as you said at the end. It's not get rich quick, right? But would you recommend people get involved in serviced accommodation if they're not involved already, or is that a strange thing to say?
No, I absolutely would be, purely because we can turn this in, and that's why we're now going down this road. We had a conversation with someone the other day, and they said, that because of all this regulation and stuff, surely people are going to start dropping out of the market. People are going to start getting out, and the supply is going to drop off and demand will rise. And the answer to that was, yeah, people might be dropping out who don't want to follow the more legislation and regulation now. But for every 1,000 people that get out, there's 2,000 more behind them that are getting into the space off the back of these training courses. So as it gets busier, going down this road and realizing that there's a lot of people that are going to be kind of upside down, and up against the wall, and they're going to be needing help. So if we can position ourselves as experts, as consultants, and attracting people to coming to us that need help, then we can make money through, consulting on all of those various services. And then basically they're going to end up saying, you know what, can you just take it on management and do it for us? You do it a lot better than we do. And then we can, but you can scale this thing without the risk, because it's not costing you anything. You're not buying furniture, you're not taking on rents, you're not taking on any liability. So it's scalable, but it's scalable in a safe way. So I think this model, yes. The rent to rent model, absolutely no.
Okay, interesting. So when you're working with people like you mentioned the exciting group of small mentees that's kind of developed, are you helping them to sort of turn their serviced accommodation businesses around if needs be, or are you helping them to become consultants in the same way you've done, or a bit of both?
Yeah, so the people that have come to us at the minute are people that have come to us hurting, in pain,
Yeah,
losing money.
yeah.
Airbnb is not working. We don't know what else to do. So we're helping them turn in their existing businesses around, which we've managed to do through teaching them all of the marketing techniques that I'm talking about here.
Yeah.
And now moving forward in their own business, they're not taking on more properties. They're taking on management deals, but
Mm,
they're taking on management deals because of they're positioning themselves as, as experts, as local experts. They're putting themselves out there, building a brand. Their faces are everywhere on social media. They're giving value over the internet. They're answering questions. So people are naturally organically coming to them and saying, "Wow, Daniel, like I see that you're in Canary Wharf. So am I. I'm struggling. Can we go and have a coffee?" Yes.
mm.
And then obviously that leads to them taking the property on as management. So from moving forward, it's all about us passing them deals for free that we're sourcing for them and growing their management side of the business.
Interesting. And I want to link in a couple of questions that are coming on the chat with one that I had because I think they all kind of link together. So everyone's favorite superhero Yogesh asks, is licensing going to be a problem for new service accommodation? And he also asks, how does so these are questions around rules and regs, I suppose. Why don't we do them one at a time? So is licensing going to be a problem for new service accommodation, do you think?
Yeah, I think in the pinch points, like I said, in some of the coastal areas, you'll definitely need to go through planning when that is going to be a thing. But I don't think it's going to be a big problem. I think for the most of us, it will just be a registration scheme, a little bit more work around fire, and you know, I think you should be good to go in most city centre locations because they need it. People are talking about, oh, we got to get rid of Airbnb, and it's gobbling up all the private housing, all the rest of it. But the fact is,
Mm,
if they took it away and if they regulate it too much, it's like HMOs, right? They're needed because the government
mm.
haven't been able to provide an alternative. So they can only restrict it so much. But again, I think that legislation is good in all property areas because it kind of weeds out the part timers and it leaves a lot more space for people who are willing to make it work. So I think yes, you continue with it, but do it in a more of a professional full-time way, and make sure that you're
Yeah.
educated around it and it will benefit.
So I imagine and realize there are different kinds of licensing schemes probably being brought in different areas. Those are kind of different locally, but generally speaking, in your opinion, these licensing schemes or your experience, the licensing schemes that are being brought in often are linked to or similar or the same as the sort of registration. But when we talk about registration schemes,
It,
we're often talking about the same things. You need to register in order to fulfill the terms of a license. Is that roughly right?
Yeah, I mean everybody needs to register now, so that it's a UK-wide registration scheme.
Okay, I didn't know that.
But the planning, the C5 planning, change of use, like C3 to C4 for HMOs and Article 4
Mm,
areas it is really only going to be in the heavily saturated areas like down on the coast because there's such a pushback rightly so, from locals who
yeah,
can't
yeah,
who can't rent properties.
yeah.
And I agree with that. I agree with that. So, if you're looking to go into those areas, yeah, again, you might have to put in a bit more work, but once it's done, then you're going to be, there's going to be less competition. So
Yeah.
it's very similar to HMOs.
No, fair enough. And then last question for now, at least on the sort of rules and regs side of things, Yogesh asks, how does serviced accommodation work in London with the talking specifically about the 90-day rule? Has that impacted things?
Yeah, so there is a 90-day rule in London. There's a couple of things to that. Airbnb is really the only online travel agent that has like a good calendar that kind of keeps track of it. So yes, once you've hit that 90-day rule on Airbnb, they'll deactivate your listing or make you unavailable.
Mm,
But all of the other OTAs, if you're focusing on direct bookings as you should be, it's not an issue. And any stay over 30 days. So if you've got a booking of 31 days, that doesn't count towards your 90. So that's not an issue. But yes, it's what you should do. Yes, you should be applying for planning if you want to, rent over 90 days, whatever. But the reality is, are the other 82,000 hosts in London following those rules? Obviously not. So can they monitor everybody? No. So again, it's, is it an issue? I don't think so.
Yeah, interesting.
And again, you should be focused on longer bookings anyway to do this right, more profits, less turnarounds, less overheads. At which point, if you're doing 30-day plus stays, then it's not, it doesn't count.
A question from, thank you, Alex. Question from Isu comes in. Alex, what rules apply when you rent to a company in relation to HMO licenses? Well, I suppose that there's no, you don't need an HMO license, do you, to have serviced accommodation units? Maybe she means in larger units. I'm not sure.
No, so you do need to change your planning to C1 if you're looking at renting your place room by room, more
Yeah,
like
of course.
a hotel.
Yeah.
But we only do whole house rental. So bigger houses, C3 residential. One group comes, one group leaves, and everybody comes together, and that you can do just under C3. So you don't need any kind of you don't need to do anything.
Interesting. So, one thing you mentioned, I think very wisely on one of the slides was one of the slides kind of implied that you could get rich in 7 days, and you said that's probably not true. How? I think because it's a question people will be interested in, especially maybe beginners and people interested in the sector, is how long does it take to spend most of your time cycling in Spain, or having a life by design? I realize that depends on the person, but roughly speaking, what do you think's realistic?
I mean, when we set out from the onset, we haven't got the biggest portfolio, and we didn't really want that. We didn't
Yeah.
want, because in this business, like, there's people out there with 100, 200, 300 rent to rent units, and yet, they're turning over huge amounts of money.
Mm.
But there's also huge amounts of risk with that as well. And the bigger that you get, the more overheads you need, storage facilities for all the crap that you're lugging around, all the rest of it. So, we were like, what do we want? I want to, I just want to chase the sun and ride my bike and focus on my health, and have fun while I can. That was my drive. How much do I need for that? I'd rather have a really nice road bike than a Lamborghini. So, that helps. And Pooh just wanted to be at home with his family and get out of his day job. He wanted to replace his income as an engineer. So, I think realistically, if you got your head down and really, really committed and went down the management road and really learnt the systems, I reckon, I mean, what's the average, to replace £3,000 a month is very, very easy. So I don't think, 12 to 18 months, I think, is a pretty good shout to easily replace your income and be able to switch over to more of a remote lifestyle where you're, working from a laptop and back in control of your time.
Yeah, interesting.
But it's all relative, right? If you want the sea view villa and the mansion and the Ferrari, then you have to put in a bit more work.
Yeah. I mean, I earn £14 million a day, so it's going to take me a little bit longer, but I'm sure I'll get there. God, if only, eh? Excuse me while I daydream about it for a moment. What do you think? I touched on this in my first question, and sort of to bring it full circle, what do you think is the future of SA, both in maybe the good side and the bad side? So, what's the good news that's coming up for maybe you and the people you're working with? What's maybe some of the risks? And you've touched on those, of course, in what you were in your presentation. People maybe going on these courses and not being prepared for the reality of the situation, but also, yeah, what you see coming 2, 5, 10 years down the track, and what you think that means for the sector.
I think there's going to be a lot more focus coming in from the government, especially with Labour coming in. They're going to be putting the microscope on housing and trying to find a way to do anything they can to not have to build homes, like all these governments. So I think there's going to be a lot more emphasis on Airbnb, a bit more regulation coming in, which again, we welcome it as long as you know what's coming, you're educated, and you're following the process. It's just going to remove the part-timers. So I do think that that's coming, just like it did with the HMO market. I think we can all expect that. But yeah, Airbnb It's not going anywhere. They're bigger than the top 5 biggest hotel chains combined. And the fact it's simple economics, right? We house a lot of contractors in our bigger homes, and it's because if you're the boss of a construction company and you've got 8 guys that are going to site for 3 months, do you want to put them in hotels where it's going to be a lot more expensive than every night they're sitting at the bar, they're buying dinners, they're drinking beers, not to stereotype? Or do you want to put them all in one big house, where they can cook, they can clean, they've got a place to relax, it's a lot more homely, they're going to be more chilled out, they've got parking, they've got everything that they need. So not only is it better for your employees, but it's also, much more cost efficient for the employer. So these people are everywhere in the UK, 24/7, Virgin, gas companies, construction companies, corporate clients. We do a lot of work with a lot of clients from the Middle East. They're constantly traveling back and forwards. They want, city center apartments, and these guys, big budgets, long-term contracts. So that's not going anywhere. That's only going to increase. So, it's a great business.
Interesting. Okay, we're almost out of time. Pete, we'll post your Alex's contact details with the show notes, of course, as always. But in case people are lazy, why don't you tell us in words of one syllable how people can get hold of you?
Yes. So, I'm on Facebook, Alex Mannock, Instagram, our kind of blanket brand is Life Beyond Broke, which we kind of like, because there is a better way of getting out of this time for money exchange trap, which so many people are in and they don't know how to get out, and it's just work till they're 65, and then hope they get there, and then hope that there's time left over to actually enjoy things. But there is a better way, and I'm all about building a business where you can get your time back and run things remotely. So yeah, Life Beyond Broke on Instagram, also on Facebook, but my personal is where I post most, Alex Mannock. And we've also got a podcast which is actually blowing up, doing really, really well, called the Airbnb Nomads, on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts from. And you can also connect to us through there. All of our information's in the show notes.
Fabulous. Mannock, for this dyslexics amongst us, is Mannock. I think, I'm hoping. So, otherwise everything we've published about this podcast has had the name on it. So let's pray that that's correct. That's wonderful. Thanks everyone for coming today. Thanks, of course, especially to Alex Mannock for speaking to us. I've really enjoyed it. Hope you have too, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks so much for the opportunity, Tom.